This video is one of the ones on TikTok that has genuinely freaked me out so much. I checked if I locked my door 10 times yesterday. You see this person walking up, disheveled looking and stuff. They're looking around suspiciously, ringing a doorbell. It's only when they get closer to the camera you really realize how scary the situation is. That is a knife in that person's mouth, and they're checking underneath doormat for keys. Right here is what freaked me out the most. Like, pupils extremely dilated, like trying to open the door, knife in the mouth, and then they're going upstairs looking for their next victim. I'm just hoping everyone had their doors locked that night with no keys underneath the door. But it's such a scary video. Here are some of these scary frames. These are the ones that just freaked me out the most. This one too, I mean, the person is trying real hard to open the door, disheveled. I don't think they have any clothes on. It's like they're wrapped in a sheet or something. Could you imagine how bad that would be if somebody like this broke into your place? You know, I mean, they look like they're geared up, ready to stab somebody. I'm not even sure what state or city this maybe happened in. If I had to guess, Florida or Texas. Also, I've tagged the original creator below. Go check out their page and make sure you guys locked your doors today. You don't want any surprises coming at you.
Someone please tell me that this isn't true. This photo with this little girl is in the Epstein files, and people are convinced that this is 6-year-old John Bennett Ramsey. For those who may not know, this was and still is one of the biggest unsolved cases. As skeptical as I am about this portrait, which a lot of people believe is John Bennett, there's another photo that's been circulating the internet of John Bennett at a beauty pageant, which is something she normally did, and look who it is behind her. You cannot tell me that doesn't look like Ghislaine Maxwell. And I know you're probably thinking, well, this could be anyone that looks like Ghislaine. This is the thing. Allegedly, many people have said that Ghislaine was seen at a lot of beauty pageants during this time. She would go and hang out with moms and build relationships with them. And as you probably know, Ghislaine's currently in prison serving a sentence for sex trafficking minors and other crimes related to children. And also, my mind goes immediately to these videos that were found in the Epstein files of these little girls who look about the same age as John Bennett. Listen, I'm just speculating here, okay? Apparently the girl in the portrait with Jeffrey is someone else. Could be, I don't know. But also, if you know anything about this case, John Bennett's parents did some questionable things where a lot of the evidence pointed back to them for potentially covering up their daughter's murder. Also, her autopsy showed signs of SA, so I'm thinking maybe there's more to this case that we don't know.
This Russian billionaire and friend of Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell's recently self-deleted in Russia in the midst of the Epstein files scandal. So this is Umar Zabrailov. I hope I said his name correctly, but Umar was a Russian billionaire. He was also in Russian politics, but I don't understand the nuances of Russian politics, so I'm not really going to comment on that. What I do know, though, is that Umar was somewhat of a party boy, and somewhere along the way, he crossed paths with Ghislaine Maxwell and, yes, Jeffrey Epstein. So this is actually a photo of Umar from the Epstein files. I remember finding this file months ago and asking my audience, who is this guy? Because he kind of looked familiar. I guess he wasn't familiar to me, but he's mentioned and seen multiple times throughout the files. And there are direct communications revealed between Umar and Ghislaine and Epstein in May through June 2001, where they talk about a trip to Moscow, including Epstein. And in this email exchange, Umar states he really wants to see Epstein and Ghislaine. And yeah, there's a lot tying these people together. Obviously, there is a lot of discourse online alleging that Epstein was some sort of a Russian asset as well, but we can talk about that in a different video. So Umar, being a billionaire who is closely tied into Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell, I'm sure that he saw something, and in my opinion, he seems like the perfect candidate for someone who may have participated in Epstein's illicit trafficking ring. And with his name being in the Epstein files and his photo in the Epstein files, he was all over the news in Russia in the last few months. However, just about a week ago, on March 2nd of this year, at age 67, Umar was found dead. And he had died after being shot with a pistol in a Moscow hotel. Now, obviously they are calling this a self-deletion, but with all the individuals involved in this case, I always question that ruling. Not only did Jeffrey Epstein have the most suspicious death literally of all time, but Jeffrey Epstein's partner, Jean-Luc Brunel, also self-unalived in the exact same way in a French prison after Epstein. I mean, I've done multiple videos about the dozens of bizarre and strange deaths surrounding Jeffrey Epstein and his ring, but for this guy to suddenly die in the midst of all of this and he's being mentioned and brought up, I don't know, it's just strange timing to me. Now, it did state that he had tried to do the same thing years prior, back in 2020, and obviously with your name being in the press as being linked to a notorious pedophile and trafficker and your photo actually being in the file, that would be a lot of stress. So, I mean, I can see the angle where he could have potentially self-deleted himself. However, in the Epstein case, I really don't think there are coincidences. And I think timing is everything. I think extraneous circumstances are everything. And this deserves to be investigated as more than someone who decided to check out early.
Your local baker girl actually wants to murder you. Let's talk about a disturbing horror game about the most terrifying dessert shop to ever exist. 3 Mrs. Confectionery. Full playthrough with all endings on my channel now. The game starts with us getting caught in the rain and taking shelter in a local confectionery while the storm passes. But the place seems kinda empty. Where are all the customers? All of a sudden, a bubbly baker girl greets us with 2 other employees shortly after. They even said they have some samples for us to try. What could go wrong? We try the cakes and they're delicious, so light, fluffy, and sweet. Wait a second. As we continue to chew, we start to get some new flavors. Metallic, oily, and salty? What in God's name are in these cakes? They're disgusting, but the baker girls are adamant that we try more of the sweets. From this point on, we have to make some choices as something is clearly wrong here. Do we sit and wait for them to get back? Do we try and escape while the bakers are in the back making more awful desserts? Choosing wrong in this situation will result in you meeting your end by one of the girls. But in that same breath, there is a right answer. You can escape this place. Part of what makes the game so creepy is the character work, as the girls seem cute, but their dialogue devolves into a disturbingly obsessed vibe.
Here's some cool history that you didn't learn in school. A group of rats in 16th century France were successfully defended in trial for destroying barley crops by their lawyer Barthélemy de Chassena. Barthélemy de Chassena. The Apollo astronauts literally left retroreflectors on the moon in 1969, which has allowed us all the way up to today to measure the Earth-Moon distance with lasers to within a few millimeters accuracy. President Thomas Jefferson is the person who popularized vanilla ice cream and mac and cheese in America. Abraham Lincoln attempted to purchase Cozumel, the Mexican island in the Yucatan, in 1861 with the intention of resettling liberated American slaves. This was the first dishwasher that was invented in 1850, and it looks like it has a little handle that allows it to rotate. Crazy. Baltimore used to be known as the umbrella capital of the country because 7 different umbrella companies in 1920 were producing millions of umbrellas every single year. Why Baltimore?
Bro, Kim Jong-un has got some serious FOMO right now. 22 countries have now got militarily involved in the Middle East. But somehow, North Korea is not one of them. So, just to make sure that the world doesn't forget, he has bombs too. Yesterday, Kimmy, along with his daughter, personally oversaw the test of the strategic cruise missiles which they fired from their new 5,000-ton naval destroyer warship. And after they successfully struck some random islands off North Korea's west coast, their state media described it as a massive success. Bro even went on to do a photo op with his daughter and test out a bunch of the military's guns. Just a classic bring your daughter to work day. Now look, Kim, I don't know how we tell you this, but we've moved on to other supreme leaders now. I mean, it's not you. You're still hella scary and all of that. They just got the Strait of Hormuz, and it's mad.
Trump is being mentioned again in the Epstein files, and this time the charges are pretty disturbing. So according to 2 interviews with alleged victims/survivors in the Epstein files, Trump was heavily involved with Epstein. I'm just going to read this to you from the reporting. The victim recalled walking down a hallway, and to the right was the massage room with the bathroom. The victim remembered a bathroom with dark marble and bright lighting with the toilet in its own section. Epstein came into the room and was like, let's go, let's go. And this is where Trump comes in. According to the victim, Epstein got on the massage table and was on a speakerphone call with Donald Trump. The victim started getting undressed and they started massaging him. the victim started massaging Epstein's feet and pointed to his back. So we don't know how long Epstein was on the phone, allegedly, with Donald Trump, and that's all the detail that we really get here. However, it is extremely disturbing to me that Donald Trump seems to have been on the phone with Jeffrey Epstein, if this story is true, while a victim was being sexually assaulted. And it's hard to imagine he wouldn't have heard something or heard a commotion. I mean, obviously, I believe fully 100% that Donald Trump was complicit in Epstein's crime, so this isn't, something that I have to be convinced of. But for those of you on the fence, it just looks bad. There's also a second survivor who makes an accusation in these new files. I'm going to read this to you. Interviews with the second woman state she was 29 when she began working for Epstein as a masseuse around 1993. That's the period when Epstein and Trump were real good friends. She told authorities she traveled with him for 6 years, including going to his private island in the Caribbean, the document states, and massaged his girlfriends as well as Trump. Also, this is the damning part. The document states that she massaged Trump's feet on the plane from Palm Beach to New York. And then there's a little mention here that flight logs show that on August 13th, 1995, Trump and his son Eric flew from Palm Beach to Teterboro Airport in New Jersey on Epstein's plane, the Lolita Express. So now we've got accusations that Trump was getting a foot massage from a victim, just like Bill Clinton, and accusations that Trump was on speakerphone or on the phone with Epstein while he was assaulting a victim. To me, I don't know how you still defend this. There are still people out there who do defend this, but yeah, I cannot wait until the tables are turned and there are new people in there that want actual justice for survivors and victims, because the day of reckoning is coming. What did Elon Musk say? The hammer of justice? I hope the hammer of justice comes down on all of these people. I mean, it's so funny. The people that seem to have been the loudest about releasing the files and going after people seem to have been implicated the most. I don't understand why they would have championed the release of the files if they knew that they were within those very files. But I'll keep you guys updated as more of this kind of story begins to unfold.
Imagine you hire a nanny for your child. You get along with her, your daughter loves her, but then you find out that she and your husband have been having an affair and they've been plotting to murder you. Brendan and Christine met back in 2003 while they were in university and had been together for nearly 20 years. She was an ICU nurse and he worked for the IRS. They had a 3-year-old daughter, and in 2021, they decided to hire an au pair to help take care of her. That's when they found 22-year-old Juliana Malgalais. She came from Brazil on a work visa and moved into their home. It wasn't long before Juliana and Brendan started getting very comfortable with each other, and it turns out that they were secretly sleeping together while Christine was at work. This affair didn't even go on for too long. Just 2 months in, Brendan and Juliana were already coming up with a plan to get rid of Christine. They lured a man into the house and staged everything to make it look like he was responsible for Christine's death, but it was actually them. The plan they came up with together was so stupid, which if you want to know the full details, just go watch it on my YouTube video. But these two really thought they were going to get away with this. And what makes this case even more disturbing is that not only was Christine killed, but so was a stranger who had absolutely nothing to do with any of this. Now, what had my jaw on the ground was that these two didn't even wait to start living their lives together. Almost immediately after Christine's death, Juliana moved all her clothes into the master bedroom, slept in the same bed Christine was murdered in, put a photo of her and Brandon on the nightstand, and even told the 3-year-old to start calling her mommy.
A monkey got abandoned by his mother but adopted by the internet. Let me explain. Punch the Monkey was born in July, and while he's not a Cancer, his mother sure treated him like one, rejecting his presence and refusing to acknowledge him. Now, mothers abandoning babies is rare, but it does happen with extreme environmental stress and especially with first-time mothers. And being born to a first-timer during a bad heat wave meant Punch got wombo comboed right out the gate. But with his mom tapped out, that left a problem. Baby macaques don't just rely on their mothers for security, they literally build muscle by clinging onto her, so keepers rushed to find a replacement. The first substitute was a bunch of rolled up towels, but eventually someone handed him a stuffed orangutan from IKEA. That faux ape would become his whole world, especially with Punch running to it for comfort every time he'd get bullied, which was a lot. Macaques have pretty strict hierarchies, and they enforce their place in it by bullying anyone under them. Fix your face, we're no better. Now, I've seen people saying they'll report the zoo for letting Punch get done like this, but it's honestly not that much worse than what you'd see in the wild. The difference is, newborn macaques often inherit their mother's rank in a group, and with no mom, yeah, that's tough. Also, there is a chance Punch not really getting to socialize means he hasn't really figured out the right subordinate or submissive response to a higher rank, which means he gets dealt slightly dirtier. But for everyone ready to die about this monkey, there's good news. At 7 months old, he's already started spending less time with the plush and more time with his own kind. Socializing, getting hugs, and especially grooming. That's a really big thing for creating social bonds. This is the one time you want to see him get groomed. Keepers also say Punch has gotten braver and much more confident about approaching other monkeys, and they seem to be coming around to him. And if they don't, IKEA donated 33 other O-rings, although I suspect IKEA did that more for IKEA. Basically, it's looking like things are gonna be alright for Punch. I just hope y'all don't forget him like Pesto or Moo Dang. The more you know.
Maxwell Anderson killed and dismembered and scattered the body parts of Sade Robinson. They went on a first date. She was a 19-year-old college student. He was 34 years old. He brutally murdered her. This happened in Milwaukee back in 2019, and he got life in jail with no chance of parole. Now, on top of scattering her body parts literally all over the place, one was in a park, one was thrown in some sort of body of water that washed up on shore, he also set her car on fire to try to cover up all the evidence. He was killed on April 1st, and they arrested him on April 4th, just 3 days later after DNA evidence surfaced. They found her literal leg in a park and sequenced the DNA, linked it back to her, and then they raided his apartment because they found DNA close to the crime scene relating to him, and they found all the evidence they needed to arrest him. He got charged with first-degree murder, mutilating a corpse and hiding the body, and also arson for setting her car on fire, and he claimed that he was innocent up until the trial was over. In June of 2025, he was finally sentenced. What are your thoughts about the story in the comments, guys?
This serial killer was caught after 45 years. Let me explain. So this man's name is John, and one day he gets a knock on his door. He goes to see who it is, and it turns out to be this random woman who tells him that she accidentally hit his car on his driveway. And she asks if he can come out and check if there's any damage, and if they could exchange information. As John gets to his car, however, a SWAT team jumps out like Power Rangers and immediately cuff him. Turns out, this woman was actually an undercover cop. The creepiest part about the whole thing is John seems weirdly calm and doesn't even ask why he's being arrested. He even applauds the cops for their work, probably because he knows exactly what he did. You see, just a few months earlier, police reopened a cold case for a killing in 1973. And with technology being more advanced now, they found DNA from the scene of the crime and broke it down through their database and linked it to John. Now, John was also arrested in another country for a killing he did there, and he served 10 years for that, so there was no doubt this was him. But when police interrogated him, he weirdly kept going back and forth between the fact that he didn't do it and that it took them long enough to find him. But with the amount of evidence and DNA they have, there's no denying this.
This is considered one of the most unsettling movies ever. The movie Hereditary will terrify you, so let's explain it. The story begins after the death of the family's secretive grandmother, which leaves her daughter Annie and the rest of the family trying to process their complicated relationship with her. As they grieve, strange and increasingly disturbing events begin to happen inside the house. Small details like unusual symbols, sleepwalking episodes, and unsettling behaviors start piling up, making it feel like something dark may have been passed down through the family itself. As Annie digs deeper into her mother's past, she uncovers disturbing connections that suggest the family may have been entangled in something far more sinister for generations. The horror grows out of the feeling that their lives are being quietly manipulated by forces they don't fully understand, creating a creeping sense that their fate may have been sealed long before any of them even realized it. Some consider this the best movie of all time, so if this sounds interesting, then go watch the movie Hereditary now.
This is one of the strangest unsolved mysteries of all time. In 1952, 9 Russian hikers who were all super experienced set off into the Ural Mountains. However, the path that they chose to take on the hike was pretty hard, even for hikers as experienced as them. And to make things worse, they ran into a severe snowstorm that night. So all 9 of the hikers decided to set up their tents and try and wait out the storm. However, at some point during that night, the hikers cut open their tents from the inside and set off into the snowstorm. All 9 of them began to head towards some trees that were nearby their campsite. And this is where the story gets really creepy. A few days later, 3 of the 9 campers were found dead in the trees. And at the base of these trees, there were a bunch of claw marks and scratches on the trunks. And the 6 other hikers were also all found dead scattered around the area. And upon testing them, their skin and clothes appeared to be radioactive.
We've officially hit day 13, and boy, did 13 really live up to its superstition. Firstly, it seems that Iran have really ramped up their attacks on civilian ships, with 6 being struck in the last 48 hours alone. Yesterday, one of the vessels was from Thailand, with all crew members having to be evacuated with help of the Thai Navy, and 2 others also reported being struck this same day. Then, overnight, 3 more were attacked. 2 were oil tankers off the Iraqi coast, with 38 crew members having to be rescued, and one of them did die. And then the latest is this insane footage which showed the moment that Iranian forces hit a US-owned oil tanker in the northern Persian Gulf region last night. Oh, and then there's also this footage. Bro, this looks like some end of days type shit. Now, it was actually a huge barrage of over 100 rockets launched by Hezbollah over to Israel. And the attacks don't even stop there, because an Iranian drone crashed into an oil storage facility at a port in Oman, and then another drone crashed into a glass high-rise in Creek Harbor in Dubai, creating this huge hole in the side of the building. And this is all while Trump today declared victory, saying in a speech in Kentucky,
"And we've won. Let me tell you, we've won. You know, you never like to say too early you won. We won. In the first hour, it was over."
Oh, and also Jake Paul was there, and he said,
"And God's got us. Trump's got us."
We also have witnessed history after the 32 member countries of the International Energy Agency agreed to the largest ever release of emergency oil reserves to calm the markets. And lastly, CNN have been told the reason that Iran's new supreme leader has not yet been seen in public. He's reportedly suffered a fractured foot, lacerations to the face, and other minor injuries that he sustained in the US-Israeli strikes on the first day of the war. Now, tomorrow we officially hit the 2-week mark, so see you then.
I can't believe this, but From has turned into one of the craziest TV shows I've ever seen, and I feel like a mass majority of people on the internet are not watching this show, and I'm confused on why. And if for some reason you're not familiar with the show follows a bunch of different families who have ran into the same exact road all across the country. As soon as they drive on this road, they see a tree down. Then they go past that tree, not realizing that they just ended up in an endless loop in a nightmarish town, where at night, creatures come out of the woods. Now, yes, the show is terrifying because of the creatures. They look like people, talk like people, and as soon as they get close to you, they will kill and eat you. But that's not the scariest part. The scariest part is as you continue to watch the show, you realize the show is a lot deeper than just the monsters. You realize that the town itself almost feels alive. The characters in the show start seeing visions, symbols, far, far away trees that will teleport you possibly to the real world, or possibly deeper in the woods. We're talking underground tunnels, random lighthouses that may spawn you back to the real world. Then you wake up and try to tell people what's going on, and they think you're insane. Season 1 rated a 96 on Rotten Tomatoes. Season 2 rated a 93 on Rotten Tomatoes. And Season 3 is a 100% perfect score on Rotten Tomatoes. And I gotta be honest, the way Season 3 ended, I think that this show, Season 4, can possibly be the greatest season of From we have ever seen. And once you start realizing the show isn't just a survive against a monster show, but it's a survive against yourself show, I feel like you start to fall in love with the show even more.
Videos that have disturbing backstories. This is a picture of famous Mexican singer Chelino Sanchez. And at one of his shows in 1992, he received a very weird note.
Not sure if you guys know this, but this guy actually trained a crocodile to be his pet several years ago. By several years ago, I mean in 1989 in Costa Rica. The crocodile's name was Pocho. A fisherman named Gilberto actually rescued Pocho because Pocho was shot in the head. He nursed him back to health and everything. Now, after the crocodile was nursed back to health, the guy released him back into the wild. But weirdly, he woke up the next morning and Pocho was hanging out on his porch and he wouldn't leave him alone. And you would think, maybe the crocodile wants to eat him. But no, he was never really hostile towards him. This friendship went on for 20 or 30 years, right? And the guy's wife ended up leaving him because he was spending too much time with this crocodile. He wasn't doing anything nasty with the crocodile, to be very clear, you know what I mean? He was just like hanging out with him like you would hang out with a cat or a dog. They would hang out at night, he would bring Pocho snacks, he would talk to him, hug him, swim with him, do everything, as you can see in the picture right here. And like I said, his wife left him, and the guy said, "I can find another wife, but I can't find another Pocho." Crocodile Pocho lived to be like 50 or 60. He was probably like, what, 30, 40 when, Gilberto rescued him. Pocho died in 2011, and, it was a sad moment for Gilberto. Me personally, I would not recommend raising a crocodile, but this guy is proof that you can. I personally wouldn't recommend it though. Let me know your thoughts.
Imagine playing a video game modeled exactly like your own room, but when you do something in the game, it happens in real life. You test this by turning the lights on and off in the game just to watch the lights in your room respond. That's when you see a strange and grotesque figure appear inside your closet asking, "Will you let me out?" But that's when you hear the floor creak from where the monster was just standing in the game. The door flies open and it becomes clear to you that the monster is not just in the game anymore. It's right in front of you.
Here are all the horror movies that released this week and where you can watch them. First up, Dark Distortion. You can rent this one on video on demand. This one is about a group of adult models turned thieves who face unintended consequences after stealing a camcorder that houses the spirit of a murdered child. The Hermit. You can rent this one on video on demand. Dragged on a vacation to the woods, teenagers Lisa and Eric fight for their lives against an unstoppable cannibal pig farmer. Dolly. You can watch this one in theaters. Macy is abducted by a deranged monstrous figure who wants to raise her as its child. Heel, also called The Good Boy. You can watch this one in limited theaters or video on demand. 19-year-old criminal Tommy is kidnapped and forced into this rehabilitation process by dysfunctional couple Chris and Catherine, who tried to make him into a good boy, and now Tommy must find a way to escape. NFT, Cursed Images. You can rent this one on video on demand. A group of crypto-savvy friends begin experiencing strange occurrences after buying into a cursed NFT collection. Didn't Die. You can watch this one in limited theaters. A podcast host desperately clings to an ever-shrinking audience in the zombie apocalypse. And lastly, The Bride. You can watch this one in theaters. A lonely Frankenstein travels to 1930s Chicago to ask groundbreaking scientist Dr. Euphronius to create a companion for him, and the two revive a murdered young woman, and the bride is born. But what ensues is beyond what either of them ever imagined.
I don't see anybody talking about this. 37 missing children were just rescued and discovered in a Riverside County home. 37 were recovered, but more than 50 were identified, and they're between the ages of 14 and 17 who had been gone anywhere from 1 month to 2 years. The federal agencies that took part in this was the United States Marshals Service, the Federal Bureau of Investigation, Homeland Security, and the United States Secret Service. The operation also resulted in 7 arrests, including a federal arrest for child sex trafficking carried out by Homeland Security investigations. Here's the state and local partners that participated in this rescue. And the location of the home that the children were found and rescued in is a home in Hemet, California. Now, I have a lot of questions here, okay? Where are the families? This is 37 children, more than 50 identified. Where are their families? Why isn't anybody talking about this, especially the news? How did these children end up in the hands of these people running this operation? What states were they taken from and relocated to Hemet, California? I just have so many questions about this, and there are very few answers online.
How long could the human body survive the angel trap from Saw 3 according to doctors? In this Saw trap, a woman is tasked with putting her hand into a jar of acid to grab a key. After she gets the key, she will use it to unlock a machine. If she doesn't do this in time, each one of her ribs will be ripped out of her body. The twist is the trap was rigged from the start, so even though she gets the key in time and unlocks the machine, it doesn't matter, all of her ribs get ripped out of her body. So the question is, what happens to the human body when all of its ribs are ripped from it at one time? Well, for starters, your skin is gone, your muscle is gone, your fat is gone. There is no structure to hold your organs inside of your body anymore. Also, all of the cartilage in your breastplate completely gone. This means that essential organs like your heart and your brain are losing resources at a rapid rate because all of that blood, it's not happening anymore. It's not going where it needs to go, and oxygen isn't going where it needs to go either. You would experience shock nearly instantaneously. Your body systems will fail within seconds. I would say you're experiencing milliseconds of pain, if anything at all, before just going to complete shock. You are not lasting long in this scenario.
Imagine filming a movie about the Antichrist, and suddenly the set feels cursed in real life. That's exactly what happened on The Omen. In 1976, The Omen hit theaters starring Gregory Peck and directed by Richard Donner. The story? A little boy who might secretly be the devil's child. Before filming even began, strange things started happening. Peck's flight to London was struck by lightning. Then screenwriter David Seltzer had the same terrifying experience on a separate flight. Even the producer, Harvey Bernhard, wasn't spared. Lightning hit his plane too. During a safari scene, the baboons used on set suddenly went berserk, attacking the actor's car. Trainers said they had never acted like that before. And here are some creepy facts that most people don't know. The original child actor considered for Damien had to be replaced after suffering mysterious seizures during rehearsals. Several crew members reported hearing unexplained whispers and doors slamming on the set at night, long after filming wrapped. And get this, one of the helicopters used in aerial shots crashed during a rehearsal, narrowly missing the crew. Some claim the crash mirrored a death scene in the movie. On top of all of that, the hotel where parts of the crew stayed in London was bombed by the IRA shortly after they checked out. Coincidence? Perhaps. With lightning strikes, accidents, aggressive animals, and unexplained events piling up, whispers of a curse started spreading among the cast and crew. Many people now call it the Omen curse. So was it just bad luck, or did a movie about the Antichrist bring something dark into the world? And I have to ask, if you were on set, would you finish the project or just say, to hell with this? I know what I would do. Anyhow, follow for more creepy content, and I'll see you next time. Peace.
Explaining visible drain. They also don't like watching exploration videos that are underwater. Even video games like Subnautica make them uneasy. And that's submechanophobia. It's extremely interesting, but you know what else is?
One morning in early August of 1927, a 24-year-old woman named Inez Perry walked in the back door of the farmhouse where her parents lived in rural Vermont. And as soon as she walked in, she went into the kitchen where her father was at the kitchen table with a man she had never seen before. And the two were shaking hands, and she heard her father say, "We have a deal." And then right after that, Inez's father looked over and saw her, and he explained that this man's name was Clarence Sinclair, and that he and Clarence had just agreed to swap houses. A few weeks later, Inez was inside of her parents' new house when she heard the clattering sound of a horse-drawn wagon coming to a stop right outside. But the second she saw who it was that was getting out of the carriage, she slammed the door and locked it. Because the person getting out of that carriage was Clarence Sinclair, the man who Inez's dad had swapped homes with. But pretty much immediately after actually doing the swap, Clarence had started acting totally unhinged. He had come back to his old home repeatedly without being invited, and he would beg Inez's dad to switch houses back, that he had made a horrible mistake. But Clarence would never elaborate. But Inez's dad had said no. You know, a deal was a deal. So now, Inez and her parents watched from the window as Clarence hopped out of his wagon and came rushing onto the porch. And he looked absolutely crazy. His hair was messed up and greasy, and there were dark circles under his eyes, and he really looked like he hadn't slept in weeks. And Clarence promptly began pounding on the front door, shouting that his family could not live in their farmhouse, and that this was now a matter of life and death. But eventually, when Inez and her family refused to come out, Clarence finally gave up, turned around, got in his wagon, and drove away. Now, that was the last time that Clarence came to their house. But it was not the last time that Inez and her family would hear about their old farmhouse. A few weeks later, on November 4th, after several days of very heavy rainfall, Inez picked up the newspaper and saw that their old neighborhood had been basically washed away by historic flooding, and that included their old farmhouse. It had literally been carried off, and the family that had been living in the farmhouse were dead. But that family was not Clarence Sinclair's family. It would turn out that after Clarence and his family had moved into said farmhouse, Clarence began having these horrible dreams where his dead mother would appear to him and tell him to move out of this farmhouse right now because something terrible is going to happen here. And so eventually he did go to Inez and Inez's parents and tried to switch it back because he felt like this dream really meant something. But Inez's father just kept saying no and said, no, that's your house now. But he ultimately listened to his dead mother in his dream, and he wound up just selling the farmhouse just to not live there anymore. And so that decision would ultimately save Clarence and his family, but it would also condemn to death the family who moved in.